Hi, it's your math facilitator, Naomi Andrick. I wanted to go over this problem. It's similar to problem number 40 in the week 1 checkpoint for my students, and it's one that a lot of students had trouble with, but I really think that you can catch on to. It's not too difficult. So I wanted to go over some examples just to make sure we got this concept down. So this first one I made a little simpler by getting rid of the variables, so we don't have to really think about variables. We're just going to think how we would approach this problem if we had numbers. And we're going to use multiplying by 1 to find an equivalent expression to 3/4 with a denominator of 20. So here we just want an equivalent fraction. Another way to write this fraction where the bottom of the fraction, the denominator, will be 20. And we would start out here by typing it or writing it like this. So we've got 3/4. We know we want to multiply it by something that's equal to 1. We're not going to write it as 1. We're going to write it a different way. And we want it to equal 20, or something over 20. So since I want to multiply this 4 times something that gives me 20, I know that the bottom of this fraction will have to be 5. And since the whole fraction is just 1, it's going to be 5 divided by 5. Because we know anything divided by itself is 1, right? So I'm going to multiply by 5 over 5. And when multiplying fractions, I just multiply straight across. So on the top, in the numerator, I just multiply straight across. 3 times 5 gives me 15. And then, of course, in the denominator, I multiply straight across. 4 times 5 gives me 20. And so my equivalent fraction is 15/20. And if you could, if you can imagine the pie cut into 4 parts and 3 of them shaded versus the pie cut into 20 parts and 15 of them shaded, you know they're going to look exactly the same. So this is just a different way to write exactly the same quantity. Okay, so here's our second example, and this one's more like what you had in my math lab. It's actually one taken right out of my math lab. So here we're going to multiply by 1 to find an expression that's equivalent to 11/12 with a denominator of 96b. So we have this introduction of the variable there with the b, but it really doesn't make it too much different. So I'm going to have 11/12 times something is equal to something over 96b. But this something in the middle we know is going to be just 1. So I have to figure out, well, 12 times what over itself would give me something over 96b. So 12 times what gives me 96b. And this, first I just look at the number parts. 12 times what gives me 96, and it's just one of your multiplication tables. So 12 times 8 is 96. You should know that. But I don't have 96, I have 96b. So instead of having 12 times 8, I'll have 12 times 8b. So I do that. I have 8b over 8b, which is, of course, just 1. Just like 5 divided by 5 is 1. 8b divided by 8b is 1. So I'm going to multiply across by this, and to get the numerator here, I do 11 times 8b, and that gives me 88b on top. And this is my equivalent fraction. So it's just another way to write 11/12. 88b over 96b. It would be unusual that you'd want to write it that way, but maybe if you're adding fractions or something like that, and you need to find a common denominator, that's when this would come in handy. Okay, so here's a third example. Again, kind of a My Math Lab type of example where we have the variable. Here we have 38d that we want the denominator to be, and I'm going to have one for you to do as well. So use the multiplying by 1 to find an expression equivalent to 12/19 with a denominator of 38d. Again, I ask myself, well, what times 19 gives me 38d? And it's going to be 2d. So 2 times 19 gives me 38, and then I also need to have a d, so I'm going to multiply by 2d over 2d. Then I just multiply the top. I get 24d over 38d as my equivalent fraction. Okay, now here's one for you to do. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can do it. Okay, now you're back, you've paused, you've unpaused, you've worked the problem, and here's the answer. So here we would just do multiply by 4c over 4c. You would get 28c over 52c. That's your answer. Bye.